afterwards.
Okay.
Judy, whenever you want me to start, I'll introduce.
Yeah, I think intro away, Angela.
Okay. Okay, everybody, good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us for our October Lunch and Learn. And we're delighted to have Judy Murphy, my colleague now. We're officially joined at the hip. Judy Murphy is heads up careers in Carlow and the Wexford campus. So Judy has put together a presentation called Professionalism in the Workplace, a presentation for students prior to entering the workforce. And Judy will kind of give you a little more detail, so I won't steal any of the show. So thank you very much for joining me. Thanks, Judy.
Thanks, Angela. Thanks for that. So, hi guys, good afternoon. And I was having a conversation with Gavin in Limerick, I think it was last year, and we were just talking about different sessions we run for students, and some of you may do this already anyway, but I was saying that now there's 4 different modules integrated into the work placement module here in SETU, right? And the idea is that a week to maybe 2 weeks, usually a week or 2 weeks before the students actually leave the college to go into the workplace, we run this session with them. So in part, for the most part, this is the presentation that I make to the students, and then I've just added in 1 or 2 slides for yourselves in terms of drivers, etc. But I suppose where it all comes from is, and you can read this, it's really the first piece of it: without an effective induction, new employees can get off to a bad start and lack clarity in their role. So I worked for many years in industry and specialised in recruitment and graduate and management development. So again, in my role even prior to that, I was taking in about 50 placement students a year into the college, into AIB, where I used to work, and also about 200 graduates a year. So just after a while, there was a repetition of the types of issues that kept arising all the time. And so I designed an induction specifically for students coming in, as opposed to other specialist people coming in. And so this in part is what I used to do with them. So it's sort of semi-college but semi-industry as well. In terms of the drivers of this, okay, a lot of students will come in here and they're actually, fear of the unknown is a big thing. Again, that drove me to do this within the university here. It's also about managing their expectations for when they go into college, because not time you hear something, well, I'm not going to do that, but also that comes back to their lack of confidence about the company and understanding the company when they get into the workplace. For a lot of them, it's going to be as well, it's probably going to be their first, what they call real job. They may have, part-time jobs that they're working on, but it's the first real job for them. In terms of employers, the objective really was to try and provide some consistency for employers and managing their expectations of students that were coming from Carlow. And I know myself the importance of a first impression. First impressions can be a lasting impression. And it was to help the students really look at it through that lens more than anything. But for ourselves, I think it's the ability that we're providing professional insight into the workplace. So we're helping the students see it through our lens as if we were employers. And we're supporting students in their transitions and ultimately building into their career readiness portfolio, if you like. So part, again, of what we're trying to do, or what I see our role as, is you are building one brick at a time with the students, with everything we go out into the work or into the various classes and groups and sessions that we run. We're building one brick at a time. So for them, it's their first day, it's their new job. Well, what's in it for them? So with the students, the whole idea of a summer placement, an internship, etc., it's letting them know they're developing their competencies and transferable skills and letting them know what those type of skills might be for them. Also, giving a good first impression to an employer. This could be an employer reference that you get eventually. And I always remember a friend of mine years ago, he got a summer job once with Guinness back in the day before it was Diageo. And years later, he came in for a role as head of marketing in Guinness, and he produced the reference that he got from his summer placement when he was working in Guinness that time. So you just never know when you're going to be able to use it to your advantage. Helping the students understand that this is only an insight into one aspect of a career of a department in an organisation, so that they're not turned off a particular organisation for life if they don't like that. Also, when you come in and when you are more professional, it demonstrates how you can actually be trusted and to be a professional in the organisation. And you know, who knows, you actually may even secure a job offer, which, as we all know, a lot of them do. So transitioning is always really important for students, and it can actually be quite difficult, but their first impressions can last. This is about, as well, understanding your personal brand, how you communicate with your team, with the organisation, timekeeping, you know, you can make it or break it in that. And it's about understanding what's happening to you and that change process. So if anybody ever has gone into a new job, or, you know, you're doing a new task, getting married, in a new relationship, whatever that happens to be, we all go through a change process. Here's one that I particularly like and again use with the students, and it's Connor's response to positive change model. So this one, we all know, you know, something happens and you're all excited and it's your new job and, you know, everything is happy days. What was I thinking is the next stage. Suddenly you get different tasks to do. You start understanding the personalities of the people involved and you're going, what was I thinking? This really seemed like a good idea at the time, but it's just part of the process. From what you were thinking, you might be going, I'm not so sure about this. And, you know, we did have a student once who left the job after 2 days. So part of making sure that we're helping them to integrate into their role is helping them to understand this. So you're not sure about it. So 2 things can happen out of this, right? What to do? You check out, and that's the high risk part of this process. And you can check out in 2 ways. You can check out by saying nothing to anybody and just maybe leaving. Or you can check out by going, okay, I think I need to talk to somebody. So please talk. That's what I encourage the students. If you feel it's too hard or it's not working out for you, come back to your placement coordinator or to your tutor or to your year head. But the students need to know who to link in with if it's not working out. And I think that's important that we cover that off in the process. And then if you go back to what was I thinking, I'm not so sure about this, what happens is you're turning what appeared potentially to be impossible to be possible. In my experience, I would say to anybody going into a new job, it really takes 6 months. You just start seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, maybe at 3 months. So sometimes, depending on how long or short the actual placement is, can determine how quickly they adjust. And we go through this cycle. This is to do with specifics, so it can be, we go through it again and again and again, depending. So new organisation, new partner, new committee, whatever it happens to be is. But you come out the other side and you can succeed, which is the important bit. But I particularly like that as opposed to adapting Kubler-Ross, which is response to positive or to negative change. So what can make a difference? And I'm sure everybody may be familiar with the story of the starfish. So this famous writer was walking along a beach one day, and in the distance he saw this lovely lady who appeared to be dancing. You know, she was bending down and she was throwing her arms around, and he said, how wonderful, he said, imagine feeling like that on a day like today. The sun was shining, was a warm day, the sky was blue, the sea was blue. And as he walked closer, he noticed she seemed to be picking something up off the sand and throwing it into the sea. And he suddenly noticed that there were thousands of starfish on the beach, and he hadn't really noticed it before. So he walked over to her and he said, you know, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And she said, I'm doing this to make a difference. And he said, but with all the thousands of starfish here on the sand, how can you make a difference? And she bent down and she picked a starfish up and she threw it into the sea and she said to him, well, it made a difference to that one. And I think when we're doing presentations like this, or, you know, if we just happen to give the student one thing that they can take away with them from a presentation, we're making a difference. So I think it's important to remember that, because we do make things happen. So again, this again is part of the presentation in terms of important to have an elevator pitch ready, because these are just the basics. Say hello to people. Don't forget your manners. It's the basics of the basic. It's the most basic thing. Casual dress doesn't mean careless dress. And sometimes the students are so used to their, what I call their uniform, their college uniform, you know, stepping it up 1 degree really isn't very impressive. So they need to understand what, if the company says casual dress or if the company says business casual, that they know what that means, and that's important. The other thing is, and I always remember a student from a college or a university that shall remain nameless, came in to AIB and within a few days had his legs up on the desk, hands behind the head, making bets from his mobile throughout the day. So he was fired, but it was the only person that was ever fired. But again, like that, it's important to know what that etiquette within an organization can be and what's acceptable. So even looking bored, you have to really work on that. I work on that every day, just in case, you know, and that's the importance really of smiling. You need to make sure that you're smiling at individuals. One of the things then in terms of timekeeping, a bugbear of mine, okay, and because I do have one daughter who is absolutely incapable of being on time anywhere, to the point where I've stopped her picking me up from the airport when I visit her in the UK. I would prefer to be an hour on a train than wait 2 hours for her, which has happened. So let the students know about timekeeping. Let them know what early means. Let them know what late means. We all know this anyway. The other thing that where they falter a little bit is they're really unsure about introducing themselves. And I'll always say, you say your first name and your surname. So be ready to say, hi, my name is Judy Murphy. Lovely to meet you, and always say the person's name when you're introduced. So that's the first time. So you've heard their name, you've said their name. Listen carefully in case any questions are asked and make sure you answer them. And if you're moving on, just turn and say, nice to meet you, and mention their name again. Now, you are increasing tenfold the chances of you remembering that person's name later that day, because you may be meeting a lot of people on the first day. If you happen to be online, use the chat box to say thank you, and or turn your mic on at the end and make sure you just say thank you if that's what they are doing. So again, you're back to your elevator pitch. Again, be ready to say, I'm studying a BSc in computing and I'm currently attending the Southeast Technological University in Carlow or Waterford, and just, you know, have it ready to go, which is really important. Don't get stuck on the day and not know what to say, because again, first impressions are lasting impressions. Now, one thing that comes up time and time again from the students, the phone was ringing and I didn't know what to do. You need to check with, if anyone is leaving the department, and if you happen to be on your own in the office or whatever it is, let the students know. They need to say, is it okay if I answer the phone? And as Angela will know, we're very professional here in the Southeast Technological University. So get them to say hello, name of the company or department, this is your name, how can I help, and to smile while they're saying it. And sometimes they need to know if someone leaves a message, you take a name, a number, double check it, and pass it on immediately. That creates such a really good impression with the company. They'll definitely want to offer them a job. Another one of the things, Coleman's power of your personal brand, is actually really interesting as well, because while you might think a huge part of what you do is your performance and how you perform, the 10-30-60 model here, performance accounts for 10% of what you do. Okay. What's your level of commitment? Start of your legacy maybe, or even confirms your ability. That's important, but actually 30% for these students, this is the message you give before you speak. When you arrive into the company, they're already deciding, you know, what they think of you. Your positive attitude. So, you know, we've all had a student that says, you know, I want to be earning 50,000 like in 2 weeks. So they're not going to just do any job because they can't see the value of it. So it's important to impress on students that, you know, maybe they're not getting paid, but maybe they are getting paid and they're just doing a placement. Of course, they're going to benefit from it ultimately, but their own attitude is going to make all the difference, and how they dress and their demeanor. But there's a huge opportunity, and this works for, you know, for us in the workplace as well, but there's a huge opportunity for the students doing simple things like turning their camera on if you happen to be online. In terms of their visibility, not to be hiding. If there are events on, turn up at events. Go to events, meet people. You know, we've had students here who have got fantastic mentors out of their presentation or out of their placements. And this works as well. This slide is equally as valuable to somebody in the workplace, but your graduates going out as well. Okay. And maybe they hadn't thought, if you do mentoring as part of the college, which a lot of us do, maybe they hadn't thought about it, but it's something to remind them that they can equally do that as well. So in terms of managing yourself, I'm reiterating, turn your camera on. If there are any events for the students, make sure that they turn up at these actual events. I didn't like to put a cigarette on here, but this is about your tea breaks and your coffee breaks. For students who are only new into the organisation, and you happen to buddy up with someone who maybe is there 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, they will have a psychological contract between themselves and the organisation about when they take breaks and how often they take breaks. And some people maybe are serious smokers or whatever, and they might take a coffee break or, you know, a cigarette break on a very regular basis throughout the day, not just 1 or 2, but they might take 5 or 6. You have to be, the student has to be, not you as in careers, but the student has to be careful that they don't end up going out every single time to have a smoke with that person, because it creates such a negative impression of the person, and they're only there for whatever length of time or duration of the placement itself. Let the students know if they are ill, the protocol around ill, that they must ring the company before 9 a.m. on the morning they are sick. Now, when they go into an organisation, the organisation might cover off all of these things with them, but maybe they won't. Okay, and that can create, if they don't cover it and you haven't covered it, it may create a bad impression. So what I tend to say is, there's a chance you might be working now in a closer environment than you're used to. You may be working in an air-conditioned type environment, or you may be working somewhere where, for whatever reason, the temperature is pretty hot during the day. You have to shower at least once a day if you're in the workplace. You have to be well groomed. Okay, it's not good enough, you know, just to say, well, you know, I can do whatever I wanted in college. You're now a professional per se. And always, always, always make sure you do not overdo the aftershave or the perfume in the workplace, and especially at interview, don't wear it. Okay. So they're the main tips that you get over, and I usually add in here, you know, change your clothes every day, make sure you're wearing deodorant, making sure you're not wearing shoes. It's summertime and you've been wearing these shoes since early May and they're now stinking of feet, but you're not aware of it. These are all things that happen to me. I mean, how do you tell someone when they're in the organization 2 or 3 weeks, actually, can you change your shoes because, you know, there's hue coming up from them. So this is a little bit just about for students, again, making your placement and beyond the placement work for you and the employer. And one of my own top tips, and I've my children demented as well, telling them this, is to take notes. So on their first day in, make sure they have a notebook and a pen, and to take notes as they're being told certain things. And certainly for the first couple of weeks, if you're being given processes and people are just verbalizing it to you, write down the various steps so you don't have to keep going back to someone saying, what did you say? Or you're afraid to go back to them and then you make a mistake. And actually my son did this, and one time he was pulled up for not doing something the right way by a different person, and he said, I took a note on the day on how to do it, and here's what I was told to do. Not sure how that went down, but anyway, there's always one. So again, write the processes down to help you remember how to do something. If someone gives you a task, always ask, when would you like me to get back to you? Because there are some people that need the pressure of a deadline to actually be able to function. You can start remembering names, different names of people in departments, and you can write these down in your notebook as well. And it's always good to remember somebody's name. I think it was Dale Carnegie said the most important thing to any person is their name. So again, remember their name. As you go around, you can ask constructive questions, but what's more important is to listen and make sure you complete tasks on time. The one thing we used to always do is, if you were, say, you take a whole load of graduate technology students in, and one of the things we'd always tell our graduates is, if you're given a deadline at work, it's not like a deadline in college. A deadline in work means you have to deliver by the deadline. Sometimes in college you'll get away with maybe asking for an extension. That doesn't work in the workplace. And that again is something learned over time. And while with some of the placements they're going to be doing a reflection, and they're going to be reflecting on what they've actually done, I think it's really important, and this is for even people on the call today, for yourselves, log the tasks you complete. Always. So just say you've just finished a project, just log that project, whatever it happens to be. And if you want to put a date in it, you can, but if you want to put any key learning next to it. Now you mightn't use that again for a year, but maybe in a year's time you're going for a promotion. And one of the things you're racking your brain to remember is, what can I use as examples for competencies? And you go back and you look at your log, and suddenly you'll remember a project that you did 6 months ago that you had completely wiped out of your memory. Okay, so I recommend this with anybody in the workplace. Now the students, again, the feedback on the notes from the students has been really, really positive. But this the last tip here is really useful regardless of what stage of career you're at. You can use it for your next job. You can use it for a performance review. You can use it if you're going for a promotion and you go back and you're able to remember things. So guys, where the magic happens for the students is outside your comfort zone. You'll start off, you'll be really comfortable, and you're going to move in to fear of moving. And just getting out of that comfort zone sometimes can be quite frightening for people, and they don't want to do it. But actually, moving from fear, you're going into a learning zone. And once you go into that learning zone and you're learning something new, you're going to easily then work your way towards growth. And that really is where the learning and growth is, where all the magic happens. So some of the feedback that I've got on this particular module, employers, again, this is last year, impressed with the quality of the students from Monte Carlo and their approach to the work. And that particular employer had commented on, he was impressed that the student actually had taken the notes. and the student also had rung them 2 or 3 days beforehand just to double check what the dress code was, and the employer actually rang the college just to say how impressed he was about that. The students' feedback then, so having completed all these modules, they felt more confident about approaching the employer before they started, and having a notebook to take down key notes during the initial stages was so helpful. And when the employer did the review on them, they even commented on that. So that reiterated what the employer had said. So again, from the academics, of course, I put this one up because they value the support from the careers department. But, you know, it is genuine and they are very complimentary. But in many cases, this is the first real experience of employment with students. And as we all know, they're going into top companies. And with the top companies, yes, they will have induction or they'll have orientation, but that's not the case everywhere. And then just in terms, you can read that there yourselves, in terms of the program director there, that this is a key module as part of the suite that is provided to all the placements here within the college. So then you're back, you know, if I'm back and I talk about the drivers at the very start, what this does for the student going out, it allays their fears really, it builds confidence and they feel supported. It facilitates the student to settle in that little bit easier. You know, they're not afraid then if the phone rings and they don't know what to do, they know how to answer the phone. It also increases their integration, I think, into the team a little bit more quickly and results in success on the job. And they can become more productive a little bit more quickly as well. And finally, I think it lays the foundation for their working lives to log CPD, continuing professional development, or any learning or any activities that they actually have done. So at the end of the session, I would normally then ask the students to identify one action that they're going to take away from today. So they have to do, and you know, throughout this, it's not just talking at them all the time. There's often stop, start, and I would do little activities, maybe 1 or 2 activities for 2 or 3 minutes during the session, just to break it up a little bit. But at the end, what are you going to do? What's that one thing you're going to do? What's the first step or action you need to take, and timeline it? Because if you're going to do an action, you have to put a sort of a timeline on it. So my question now to you is, what's that one action that you will take away from today? Or what's that one thing that maybe resonated with you today? And if you want to share it either verbally, or if you have any questions, or if you want to put it into the chat box, you are more than welcome. And that's all from me today. You'll be delighted to hear. I think half an hour is enough for me. Okay, so I'll just go back here.
That's great, Judy. Thanks.
Hi, Paula. Thanks, Angela.
That's great. Yeah, so I'm just looking at, there isn't anything in the chat as yet that I see. But if anyone wants to kind of jump on and ask anything, feel free to. But definitely, Judy, you've left us a lot to think of. And as I say, we're all working in careers, but you know, we often have to have challenging conversations with students as well. And I think certainly your presentation kind of helps us with that as well. So thanks a million. And as Anne-Marie said, some very thought-provoking thoughts there.
Yeah.
And I'm really just wondering. Oh yeah.
I just so it depends. You know, I have the hour session, but I generally go around 40 minutes. So it takes less pressure on the students because they're thinking about the next class anyway from 10 to. So, you know, I'm more interested in them picking up a couple of key things. So about 40 minutes, but you can make it longer or shorter depending on the amount of time you have and the amount of time that you allocate for the activities if you want to do it. So, you know, it would be like asking them, what do you think are the key things that you really need to think about going into the workplace? So coming up with that. Thanks, guys, for your comments.
Yes, some great positive feedback there, Judy. So
always a relief.
Absolutely. No, it's great. Yeah, and I think you touched, for those who are dealing with students on work placement as well, I think you've provided some very useful insights then for our colleagues to share as well, which is very kind and generous of you, Judy. So thank you for that.
I've stopped sharing my screen at this stage, have I?
Well, we can just see, we can still see it there, Judy. Yeah.
Stop sharing. Okay. Is that okay now?
Yeah, someone's got, Judy's, or sorry, Tracy, you've got your hand up. Did you want to ask something there, Tracy?
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, how are you? I did actually, it was going to be too long to put into a chat. I hope that's okay.
Where are you calling from, Tracy?
Sorry, my screen freezes, so I might have to turn off the camera if it keeps freezing on me. I didn't catch that last sentence, Judy. Sorry.
I just said, where are you calling from?
Oh, I'm with SETU Waterford. I look after placement for the computing students.
Oh, very good.
Down here on the Cork Road campus. So I know Angela and I know Paul as well. I can see. But hi, Paula. Yeah, my question is, I really liked I think the thing that stuck in my head that really was the response to positive change.
Yeah.
Because I'm very.
You're freezing, Tracy. You're freezing, okay. So if you do want to turn off your screen and just talk.
Sorry, I'm working from home and the Wi-Fi here is appalling today. I think it's the wind or something. So yeah, I hadn't seen a model about that response to positive change before. So I'm definitely going to look into that, because that is something that I would have identified with students every single year, but hadn't seen it encapsulated like that. So I do tell the students, I make a point of, it doesn't matter if you have a concern or a question or anything at all, don't have a think about whether it's worth coming to me about it. If it's bothering you, then you should come to me about it. And I know some of them do.
Yeah.
And then once they come once, they'll always come back to you until the thing is resolved. But I know that a lot of them don't, even though I realise afterwards when they tell me something or in the middle of the placement that they should have. So I'm wondering, do you happen to know if showing them a graphic actually drives the point home, or have you had any feedback from placement coordinators as to what?
I missed that there.
I'm just wondering, have you had feedback from placement coordinators as to, so you're giving the students that message in your session and you've got a graphic up, I'm assuming that they see that, and I'm doing it but without a graphic, and I'm just saying it to them, and I'm trying to think, I wonder, does it make a difference if it's in an actual present?
I think once you say it, it's important, but
as opposed to me just saying it. I'm wondering, have you had feedback from that?
Yeah, so in all of my presentations to the students, I'm doing it on behalf of the placement, the program director and the placement coordinator, and they attend every session. So if there are any queries, they can reiterate and they can answer specific questions, which is really useful. But I think, again, all people learn differently. So I'm thinking of, they're hearing it, they're seeing it one way, and the visual for me just reiterates it. And I tend to use visuals a lot in my presentations. So that's why I like that one. And actually that slide, that response to positive change slide, is a slide I use when I'm talking about transition to college to first years.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So it works really well from their point of view, because you have to wait till they're in about 6 weeks. And it takes 6 weeks before someone goes, what was I thinking? And then we can generally direct them to the chaplain or somebody else.
Yeah, I think I'll definitely use that. Thanks very much for sharing it.
Yeah. Anybody else have any particular questions? I'm looking back at the chat here. Yeah, I'm sure it's easy. Breda, we can share the slides. I'm sure there's no problem.
Yeah, no, we're going to share the slides, and it will also be recorded on the AHECS YouTube channel as well, so that helps people just in case they couldn't make it.
Yeah.
And just what, Judy, sorry, the one about the phone was interesting. I was at a presentation that some of the students post presentation were giving, and one student, he just said he was in an office and there was a telephone there, and he said, I don't have a telephone at home. I don't know anyone who's got that. I know everyone with mobiles. And he said the phone was ringing the whole time, and he was looking at the phone. He said, well, I'm on work placement, I presume I don't have to answer the phone. But he was saying this in his mind. He was looking, and someone kind of threw a book at him and said, are you not going to answer the phone? He says, well, like, what am I going to say? You know? So he just said, it's so important, he said, and literally like what you're saying, to say, look, this is whatever company it is. Because I know over the past, if I've had students on work placement here and they've answered the phone and say, can I speak to Angela? She's busy, whatever. And they'll say, and ask who's calling. Oh, she knows who it is. But, you know, so maybe we just forget we have to cover that. And some employers do talk about, business communications, whether it's email or answering the phone. And that's one thing that reminds me just to kind of say it again to the students, because they really, if they have a mobile phone, it's probably just people who ring them that they know. So then how they answer the phone is very different as well, so.
Yeah. And like in some companies you have to answer it within 3 rings, so it'll get to the 3rd ring and a whole load of people in the department will jump to pick it up, but everyone's waiting for everybody else to pick it up. In the meantime,
you always answer the phone with a smile on your face and so professional.
I was saying to Angela this morning, so Angela rang this morning. No, I didn't know it was Angela, obviously, but the phone rang and I have to say to myself, Southeast Technological University, and then I pick it up and I say it. But it's like, I don't think I could pick the phone up and just say it out without practicing first. We're still trying to get used to it, aren't we?
Absolutely, yes. So, well, look, I don't know, is there any other questions?
Yeah, I'm just seeing here, Tracy, thanks for that, Tracy, and Mary Rose, taking the notes in the early weeks. And I would say that is for anybody at any stage of their career, to be perfectly honest. And like I even still use my diary, and if something out of the ordinary, it's a bit like, you don't need to say all the ordinary things that happen during the day, but if something out of the ordinary happens, I just write that down at the end of the page of my diary. So if I'm going back doing a report at the end of the year or whatever, I can go back and I go, oh God, I forgot about that, So, yeah. Hi, Paula.
Hi, Judy. I don't have the whole screen, so I can't write in anything. But okay. I just wanted to say that was fabulous. Thank you very much indeed. And apologies, I was late. I was coming from another meeting. But I just wanted to mention social media.
Yeah.
It can be a big issue when students are out in the workplace, maybe for the first time, particularly when it's on placement.
Yeah.
And, sometimes like academics can contribute to that in some way, and that they're asking them maybe to have a video log or something.
Yeah.
But it's really important that they're very, very careful about how they use social media, what they say on it, who they have in their pictures or the videos, around confidentiality and that. And you may have said that at the beginning. Apologies if you have.
No, I didn't actually say it on this, but this is one of 4 presentations I make to the placement students. And when I'm talking about the interview piece, I have like a little slide, clean up your social media profile, make sure whatever is online is what should be private is private. And they all start laughing, they're going, oh my God, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. So it would be an earlier version of the presentation, but I didn't actually say it in this slide, and probably worth mentioning again. So thank you for that.
Just it can cause great difficulties for the company as well as the students, and not to mention the university and the AHECS. So, and thanks, absolutely. That was really super. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Paula.
So if there's no more questions, we're going to get Judy her lunch. So thank you very much, Judy, on behalf